Hi, everybody. I'm Melanie Russell. I'm the Executive Director of 2Labor, which is an international doula training and certifying organization. You are listening to Two Raise Questions Doula podcast, and I'm really glad you're here. All right, everyone. I am so excited to have this guest on with us today. We are welcoming Tori Mitchell onto the podcast. Hi, Tori.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I love working with you, and now it's just kind of fun to see you outside of the hospital. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Tori is, first of all, a mom of three. Tori is a trained 2Labor birth doula, labor and delivery nurse, and now has just added midwife to her role. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So excited for you. So excited for the community in which you will get to serve. I've had the privilege of working with you through your L&D career and getting to know you maybe a little bit before, just kind of knowing of you, I think, as a doula through Therese. But I cannot wait to be in that room when you're the midwife. I think we're going to have a lot of fun.
It'll be a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah.
I think I met you, I think very briefly. You were covering for Therese in a birth circle one night, and I was pregnant with Henry.
Aww.
That was the very first time I met you. And I don't think I saw you again for a really long time. And then it was really cool to be sharing the space when I was working as a nurse and we had some of our first births together. Really do enjoy working with you. So it's nice to be here with you outside of the hospital. It's a good time.
Good. Thanks for being here again. So I'm trying to do this little series of talking to different providers about kind of how you got even into this work. And I love, of course, that you started as a 2Labor doula. So if you could start there with how you made your decision to even take that training, and then walk us through what that was like, and then how that training, how the 2Labor training has shaped your perspective, what you've pulled from that training, even in your roles as nurse and midwife now.
Yeah. So my decision to kind of take that training kind of all came together after the birth of my second child. So I had obviously one baby. I had midwifery care for that and had fantastic experience with my midwife. And the course of that labor, the decisions that she made, I think really shaped the outcome in ways that I didn't know like the extent until after I had gone through some of the trainings I had gone through. But I had a positive experience, even when I didn't understand all the pathways. I had such a great experience with her. And then my second baby, I had a pretty rapid labor. So my water had broken and she was, at another birth. And so she had me go to the hospital. And I was kind of a mix of distraught to have things out of control. And then just very, very glad to see some of the faces I did see, because the physician I knew and was waiting for me right outside to pick me up at the parking lot and bring me in, which was just so kind.
Love that.
And I had a doula who met me there, and ended up having a super rapid labor. And my doula had stepped out of the room to go grab the nurse, which I didn't really know at the time, but she thought that I was getting close to delivering. And in the time that it took her to get the nurse and come back, I realized I could touch my baby's head. I told my husband he needed to get someone, and he flung the door open and nobody's obviously standing in the hallway.
Gosh.
And so he comes back in the room and is like, I don't see anybody. I don't know what to do. And we just had the baby.
No.
And it was really it was beautiful. It was surprising. I did not, I was shocked, because I went from the work of labor to suddenly I can touch my baby's head. And, we both, he and I both just reached our hands down and caught the baby together. And we put my son on my chest, and we were in the bathroom. So we grabbed a towel and put it on his back and rubbed his back until he cried. And it felt like it was a lot longer than it probably was. And it just like, he let out that cry, and then just kind of, we just looked at each other, you know, like all three of us together. And like we were in the bathroom and the door was shut and the lights were off and they were like little tea lights, which feels magical. But it really did. It just felt like everything was calm. And then, you know, everybody came in and helped me get like comfortable and back to the bed and like do all the rest of the work of
I
like
bet they were
after the
surprised
baby.
when they walked in that door.
Oh, they were so surprised. It was crazy. I felt so bad. Like in hindsight, I'm like, I hope I said things nicely. I probably didn't. Like everyone came running in and I was like, stop. Nobody touch anybody. I'm calling my midwife. I don't know what to do. And then, you know, it was fine. And I felt like, you know, everything ended up being okay. And I got back, you know, to bed and like everything went fine. And I went upstairs and my midwife came and sat with me for a long time and just helped me process. And it just felt like I could collapse into everybody else. And then in hindsight, like in the postpartum weeks, the first few weeks, I just was impressed that I had been calm in that moment when I realized like I'm a person with no training of any kind whatsoever, and you're just doing what you're going to do, you know?
Yeah.
And so at my 6-week checkup, I like blurted out to her that I was like, I want to do what you do. And I was like, I don't know how to get there. And it just, I don't know. It felt like I couldn't, it was like bubbling over and I couldn't not say something. And I did. And she just literally gave me like a list. And she's like, you're going to take the time that you need to take and all the experiences you have leading up to it. Doesn't matter when you get there. Like all of those things are going to shape who you are and how you practice. But the very first thing you have to do and the most important thing you have to do is you have to take the to labor training while Therese is teaching it.
Wow. That's so amazing.
Yeah. It was beautiful. And I agree. Like, I think that she was so right. She's like, I don't know what will happen when she's not teaching it. And I don't know, you know, it could be perfect and wonderful, but you need to learn from her. Yeah. And so I signed up for the very next one. And
what year was this?
This was the January 2017.
Oh, wonderful.
So it was really nice. And what was really cool about it was a friend of mine who I grew up with, whose mother was also in birth work and worked with Therese and worked with my midwife, Nancy. She took the training with me. And so that was something beautiful we got to share together. And it was really special. I think from that training, there's lots of things that I learned that stuck with me, but like two things. It was like one thing I read and one thing Therese said that have just like, I think been foundational for me. So the first day that we were there, Therese like opened it up and she said, you know, birth is a human right. And that experience is like sacred and is with someone forever. And everyone is deserving of, you know, that experience. Just that, like, it's a human right. And I think for me, like that's something I already believed, but like hearing the words that she used to describe it, like it was like connecting the dots of like what I felt already inside. So I think that has been really foundational for me. And then she had a poem on the wall that I have favorited so much. And I feel like for me, it spoke to the feeling I had of like, I have to go do this. I can't do anything else. And I don't know how long it'll take, but this is the path I'm going to be on until I get there.
And what was the message of the poem?
So the poem is "Do not choose the lesser life." And it, you know, it has several more lines, but just even that very first bit, if I'm not thinking about the whole thing,
don't settle.
It's just don't settle.
Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah.
You're making me cry. I love that. And look at you now. You did it.
I can't even believe that. Like you know, when I took boards, they tell you at the end, like you get a printout and it said, you know, that I had passed, obviously. And I just like burst into tears. Like it was just. Of course. I mean, it does make sense, I guess. That's a big thing. But
the journey alone, it just is so, it's so challenging.
It is. And I feel like I just felt immense gratitude for all of the people I've learned from and who put me on this path, like in whatever ways that they did.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, I'm so glad that you found your way to this path because I know personally I've benefited from it. You used to be, I try to leave you alone now, but you used to be one of the first texts that I would make when heading into the hospital where you work are you on? Do you know who's on call? What's going on? Can you work with us? Can we have you? And then I know so many of my clients have benefited from you being in that room. You are just so wonderful to work with. And even though working for a system and within a system, you have navigated that balance so beautifully with also being able to advocate for your patients. And that's something that really stands out to doulas, which is why you're here today.
Well, thank you.
So you became a doula. And how long did you practice as a doula?
I guess it was really only like 3 years, and it became more part-time than I initially thought it was going to be because I didn't think I was going to get into nursing school right away. And so I started working as a doula, and I had most of the prerequisites for nursing school done already. And I took the last few, and I just applied, and I didn't think I was going to get in on the first round, and I did. And so I just kind of carried through nursing school and worked as a doula more part-time than I thought I was going to, because I had to kind of balance it with nursing school clinicals. And but even in that time, like I got to have a repeat client in that little bit of time, which was pretty special too. And yeah, it was definitely also very important to do even the little bit I did while I was in nursing school, because all of the care that you provide as a doula, like that's the care that patients in any place in the hospital need, you know?
Exactly, which is perfect segue to my next question. So as you were in nursing school and as you actually started your nursing career, how did you see yourself working differently than your colleagues because of this background in doula work, or even just in the doula training?
Sure. Yeah. No, I think just like this, it was my experience that in the training with Therese, like this underlying theme of dignity was like in every single thing that we talked about. And so I feel like for me as a, as a nursing student, as a nurse, as somebody like moving through all of these different roles, like just that idea of preserving self and dignity and like autonomy in everything that we're doing is what's the most important to me. And sometimes that's going to be something like where you're just like telling someone they're allowed to wear their own clothing is so stupid to say out loud, but people don't know that all of the time. And they just don't, like, it's not expressed like as much as it should be. And so it feels kind of silly sometimes to be like, you're allowed to wear your stuff.
I mean, what a difference, though, in care, because
how do we not say
we
that?
walk into a room and the first thing usually the nurse says is, okay, here's your gown. It's folded neatly on the bed. Go ahead and put that on. And then we'll get the monitors on. Just to have the difference in care from the beginning saying, you don't need to put that on.
Yeah.
That's fine. What you're wearing is just fine. It's perfect. Are you comfortable? Then let's keep that on.
Yeah. And like, I will always provide all the things. Like if you want the gown, heck yeah, I got it. I've got all the hospital gowns. There's so many of them.
You can get the socks. You can do it all.
Yeah, you can. And that's great too. And if you are like, I am so excited to be in the hospital and I want to like really lean into it, by golly, I'm going to give you all of the socks.
I want my butt out the entire time.
But
please.
like nobody does. Nobody really is like, yes, my first thing I want to do is get this butt out. But if you did, I'd be like, okay.
Sure, I'm here for it.
I'm here for it.
Yeah.
But I think it's really just that principle of like it feels weird to feel like you're giving permission to somebody in the hospital to be themselves.
Right.
And yet, because it's this system, people need to be told you don't have to conform to every single thing in the system and you're still yourself. You're just also yourself here.
Yeah, that's a giant doula principle there that you're bringing in. I love it. I mean, even just the tiny act of making sure the sheet is over somebody while getting a vaginal exam if they don't want everything splayed out. We've got people coming in and out. Just that quick little, let me just put the sheet over you so you feel more comfortable. A lot of people don't realize that makes a huge difference. So I love that, preserving people's dignity.
Thank you. Yeah, I think, and I feel like that's something that I see is really evident in like the doulas that I work with too, is everyone is very attentive to that. And then when I see, folks in different roles who are maybe not, like, it's also like, they'll be like, well, you're going to be naked at some point anyway. And I'm like, yeah, but you don't have to be.
Not until you're ready.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you might not ever be ready.
I've actually helped somebody whose baby was in their pants.
Yeah.
It happens. You actually don't have to be naked. We can just pull the baby out.
Yeah. Exactly.
We can figure out what else we need to do later. But like everyone sometimes, not even just the patient, like the client who's there having a baby, like everyone, their family members sometimes need to hear that it's okay to still be yourself.
I love that.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So how long did you work as a labor and delivery nurse? I know you're still in that kind of role right now. So how long has it been?
I guess March is the end of 6 years. So
the end of 6 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And have you been in one place the whole time?
Yeah. Yeah. I started in March of 2020 at Henrico. It was a good time to start a career in healthcare, I gotta say. It was like the first week.
I don't think I saw the bottom of your face for quite a while.
I was going to say, I think it was like 2 weeks before, it was like literally like my first week of hospital orientation. I had 1 week on the floor, and then it was like the full pandemic shutdown. And then it was like, yeah, there were a lot of people that I didn't meet until after we had those precautions in place. And so I didn't see the bottom of their faces for a really long time. And I was like, oh, that's what your chin looks like, or whatever. Just
so
like
interesting.
It was very different. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was good. It was a good time.
It was a very crazy time. I had some of the wildest births in my career during that time.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do a podcast on pandemic
That would be
births.
a great one. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've been at Henrico that whole time, and I think I've been really, really happy there. There are a lot of things that I think that they are in tune with that are in alignment with myself and my beliefs. So
yeah. And so working with other nurses, is it obvious to you and we can even say providers as well, because I know a lot of providers start out as doulas as well. A lot of midwives start out as doulas and some OBs as well. Is it obvious to you when someone else has had that kind of training or had that kind of background? And are you ever, do you ever discuss that with your other colleagues?
Yeah, I think there's definitely, whether it's like, like you said, like a nurse or a provider, there's just, I think there's something that stands out, and it's not always like clear to me if it's this person was a doula first, or like maybe this person was, if they're a physician, this person maybe came from a nursing background first, because there's a different, I know at least in nursing, there's a different approach to like discussing not just like nursing diagnoses, but like of the body, but also like of the potential human condition. And so I feel like sometimes I just meet somebody and something feels a little different to them, and I don't always know what it is, but I know it's something to do with this like attentiveness to the human experience. And I will always try to kind of probe and find out. I'm like, I gotta get to know this person because we're on the same page, and I wonder if we had the same beginning, or if it's if it's different. I want to hear it too.
Yeah, I find that a lot of times that feeling results from that person being an empath, and from that person understanding how an ego does not fit into the room.
I think you had mentioned a couple of other things maybe we'll get to later, but I think ego is the biggest problem that I encounter from any person in any role, or in a non-role, but just like a person's support person. There's no room for ego in the birthing space.
Support person, nurse, provider, partner. And that's one of our principles of the 2 labor training is that ego needs to be hung up outside of the door before you walk into that room. That's where everything stems from for us. You have to enter the birth space with open hands and an open heart. It is so tough to navigate a birth with a provider or a nurse who's letting that ego get in the way. And making it about them, making the client's decision, if it's a decision that they didn't like, being upset and showing they're upset, even though that decision doesn't affect the outcome, the wellness of the baby or the patient, just having that energy in the room.
Yeah.
As we know, going through the training, we talk a lot about hormones and how energy is felt so intensely to the birther. And even just that, the way that someone answers a question, the tone of voice used, the words that are chosen to use, if that ego is coming into it, can really make or break someone's whole experience.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can say the same thing with a different inflection and it means something completely different.
Yes.
And it's just so important. I mean, I think you can even accidentally do that. And it's just so important, I think, to, like you said, like you mentioned, check your ego at the door. I will definitely expand on that. Like as a nurse, it's like, I don't want to have an ego like even in the hallway. If I leave it, I mean, it sounds kind of dumb, but I'm like, if it doesn't stay in my car,
okay,
it's
you
gonna
leave yours
come out
in your car.
It's literally gonna come out on accident somewhere. I'm gonna like accidentally get cranky and hungry and tired and be unkind in the hallway to somebody, and I don't need that either. Like it's the same thing, but I just have to be so intentional that like I have to start my mornings a certain way to feel like I'm able to just be in the present moment and let go of anything I think or feel or any shift I've had before. And, you mentioned the idea of like, maybe somebody doesn't make a decision you agree with and that it's so challenging when you're working with somebody who's letting that be known, through the way that they put things down or the way that they say other things or whatever. You know what? I don't care. Like, I saw this like little trending quote from an influencer who I do adore, and it just put that into words so well. Like that, the true work of advocacy and the true work of care is doing that no matter what somebody's decision is. Like, it's as a nurse, as a midwife, even as a doula, like your job is not to take over that person's decision making and autonomy and voice. Like, it is to hold space, to allow them to ask questions. It's maybe to be the interrupter. If somebody is saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to break your water now. I love to be the interrupter and be like, have you guys talked about what that means?
Oh, I love that.
Did they already explain that to you?
I love that.
Do you have any questions about that? Like, I don't want to be like adversarial, but I do want to pause. I want to introduce pause and make sure that like my patient knows what that means. And, and knows that like with anything, we don't always know. We have sometimes this can happen, sometimes that can happen, potentials, but we don't know what's going to happen in that moment. We don't know what will unfold. And so everyone needs to know the information to make any kind of informed decision. And when I have people who make decisions that I don't agree with, it doesn't matter. Like,
it's their story.
It's their story. It's my job to tell you all of the information and to make sure you've had space for questions, and it's your job to make those decisions.
And that is a doula.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is a nurse who was previously a doula. Yes, because I love that introducing pause bit. A lot of times in interviews, people will say, what exactly do you do? What is your role here? We have the nurse, we have the midwife or the provider. What exactly do you do? And I say, I can't tell someone no for you. I don't lay my body across yours and say, don't do this procedure or don't touch her like that, even though sometimes I wish that I could. I don't do that. But what I can do is facilitate the conversation. And that might mean introducing pause, creating space for a conversation to occur where it doesn't sound like one was going to occur. It was just going to be done. So asking those questions, are you okay with this? Do you guys need some time to talk about this? Do you have any questions around this? Is this something, remember you had a question at our meeting earlier that you wanted to bring this up. Do you feel like this is a good time to do that? Just helping people create those redirections in a conversation so that they are able to get the full scope of options.
Yeah.
Do you find, this is something I talk about a lot in the childbirth education class that I teach and to clients when working with them in the very beginning of their pregnancy, sometimes midway, if they're not really locked in on their provider. As a doula, it's really hard for me to witness the difference in experience and skill sets across different providers. And to know that my client is only limited in what that one provider is going to offer them.
Yeah.
And so I say, I'm experiencing births all over town. I go to many hospitals. I work with all of the different providers. I get to see all of the options. And so then when I'm confronted with a provider who is saying this is the only option, and I know that a different provider 3 doors down in this same hospital last week offered 2 different options, that's really challenging as a doula. And I will sometimes step in and say, what about these? Are these options here? Can we talk about this? As a nurse, how do you handle that?
As a nurse, if a doula is introducing options?
As a nurse, when you're in a room maybe without a doula and a provider is only offering one thing when there are more options to be offered.
I will usually ask the same thing. And sometimes that's a conversation in the room. Sometimes that's a time where I might suggest that idea to the patient of like, do you want some time to think about this? We can step outside of the room and give you guys some time. And I may have that conversation with the provider outside of the room. It truly does depend. One of the things that I think is important to be in tune with in how I'm navigating conversations is that while I am introducing pause or maybe advocating for things that I know my patient might want, or advocating for more options when we're trying to like make a decision together. Maybe there's like somebody's wishes and what they're recommending clinically don't necessarily align, then I might be able to try to advocate for what's in the middle. Like,
Great.
Maybe we need to do something for a safety reason, and the person is in agreement with that, and also they're grieving the loss of other things. Well, what can we still carry through? But sometimes those conversations are best had between me and like not excluding the patient, but if I'm trying to get the provider, like, hey, what about this, or this? Sometimes those conversations are best had outside of the hallway because then I'm not then bringing what might feel like we're not on the same page.
An attack of the
There's
ego.
an attack of ego,
Yes.
and anything that might bring like negative energy into that birth space that could make that patient feel uncomfortable, unsafe, feel like their team isn't working together, or feel like there's a reason to distrust anybody, which I think all of those things just cause fear. And fear is tricky because fear is going to come up in the birth space anyway from like adrenaline and the unknown and all of the potentials. And, we talked about this in the labor training, like those emotions impact the labor and the experience and the memory of it all.
Yes.
And so I do feel like there's a balance that's sometimes hard to learn between adding things to discussion and also protecting the like sacred space of the room.
I love that. That's such a good point. And that's something that doulas don't always have the chance to do.
Right.
A lot of our work has to be done in real time in the room. And, there are times when I might snag a provider outside, especially if we have a relationship prior. We've worked together a few times. If, I feel like there is an openness there, but a lot of times we are limited in that space to do that work in real time. So that's even more, it's even greater to hear that you're doing that doula work within this nursing space. And hopefully some of your colleagues are seeing that too and kind of adapting to that.
I think one of the things that I really do love the most about working with the nurses that I work with is that I would say the majority of my team has the same kind of beliefs. And if I am outside at the nurse's station and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I've tried this. I'm thinking of this. A lot of times it'll be like a mini powwow of like the meeting of the minds. And everyone's like, what about this option? What about this option? I read this the other day. And it feels good to feel like maybe those people will never even enter my patient's room, but like they all care just as much and they will get just as loud. They're
all contributing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely feel that in the hospital where you work. I love walking in there and just seeing everyone at the nurse's desk. And everyone's like, hey, what room are you in?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'll come see you.
Yeah.
And especially if we're in a hard spot and then someone else walks in and they're
Yeah.
like, okay, or it's tricky to find this vein. I'm calling this specific nurse to come and find this vein for us. And she's great and she'll do it painlessly. Or even just where we've got a baby in a wonky position and we need to have someone who has a lot of experience. We're going to call a different nurse in to come help us with this.
We have a little whiteboard where we write some of our stuff on it. And somebody recently had put like, what are your favorite like tricks in the labor space? And it made me laugh so hard how many people put up there like, don't like something to the degree of like there's a specific nurse who has some really good positions that she'll always she's like the magic brain that we might all go pick but you can't ask her until you've done sideline release. And it was so funny how many people were like, don't do it until you've done that.
Yeah,
you could ask for help, she'll have it for you, but
try this first,
start this basic first. Like but yes, like really everybody is like they do want to kind of collaborate. But I think it's that energy of like collaboration and centering the person who's birthing in any role is necessary.
Yeah. And collaboration, as you know, is one of our 5 principles of doula training. Yeah. And, we want to foster that positive collaboration within that room. We want to be on the same page with the provider, with the nurse, with our clients, obviously. And we don't want to really have to advocate.
Yeah.
We want to have everyone come together just for the greater good of this client/patient and just help them achieve their goals, not have to make decisions or argue back and forth or remind people of what people want. Really just come together and do the work together.
Yeah.
We all have our very specific roles, obviously. Which brings me to the next question.
Yeah.
So this is a twofold question. So first, what are some things that you have noticed when working with doulas that you really love? When a doula does that, something that you're like, oh, I love that. I'm going to put that in my pocket, or I expect to see that in other doulas.
Okay. So there's probably, I'm sometimes really hard. It's hard for me sometimes to remember certain specific things. Like I will tuck them in the back of my brain, but coming up with an example in the moment, sometimes a little hard. But I think more generally, the things that I just really love are like doulas who are doulaing, like the doulas who are there with their client and like who are involving a partner and showing the partner how to support like that. I always adore seeing like, yes, be there and do the work. And me too, as the nurse, like be there and do the work. Great. But when a partner sees the person in labor, like they're just like stuck. They're like, oh no, what do I do? They're hurting and they're struggling. And I love just like a suggestion and an invitation to like bring that relationship back together in that space. And so when I see somebody who's really intentional, like maybe the doula is holding some counter pressure for a little bit for, the person laboring, and then they look at the partner, they're like, come here, come try this. Yeah. It's just so like special to see that like there's that attention to that relationship. And I think I, as a nurse, love to prioritize that because, when you have a person laboring and having the baby, like that's the first thing that they're doing together as parents. Yes. And inviting them to share that moment together. I just feel like it sets them up to go deal with all the hard stuff as a parent a little better because we've done it already. Like we've already done this one hard thing together for this child, and let's keep going and doing hard things together. So I love when they're inviting partners in and showing them how to like care for this person that they love. They can't make it stop, so what can you do to help them?
We can support.
Support.
And I think I call that being the choreographer or the director of the event rather than being one of the main stars. And I think that's part of, sometimes it's tough to navigate that as a doula because we get into this because it feels good. We want to have that kind of validation from our clients, but the validation is really in stepping back and witnessing this bond, this new, different kind of bond come into play. When that partner sees how hard the birther is working and doesn't try to fix it, doesn't try to stop it, just supports, has the water, has the cold compress,
Absolutely.
does the hip squeeze, is the one slow dancing, that is going to remain in the birther's mind every night at 3 a.m. when they are exhausted and, it's the partner's turn to change the diaper and they get up and they do it without, any kind of, that's that kind of bond I think can carry people through those early years.
For sure. Absolutely. And I think I feel like so many of you have said specific things when you're helping somebody with breastfeeding postpartum that has like stuck with my mind because, at my hospital, we follow the lactation consultants for some like early, like how to help with latch stuff. So that way, like as the nurses, and we have some training we do online, but like as the nurses, when the baby is born and they want some help with like breastfeeding, we've done a little bit of help and it doesn't replace like a lactation consultant, but it helps bridge the gap until the LC can see the patient. But I think sometimes it's just the language different people use to explain different, like the same thing that helps me. And so there are a lot of like things that I've heard like you and other doulas say when you're helping people like in the very beginning with latching or with like explaining what to expect that I'm like, I like that phrase. I'm going to tuck that in my pocket. And I definitely think I'm a phrase stealer.
Yeah, I am for sure.
But it definitely does help. And then just, like whether we're inviting the partner or we're helping with really amazing little phrases, really just being hands-on if somebody wants the touch or just being close and in action. Like, yes, maybe we're in the background and we're letting them kind of do their thing, but you're also still like actively available. And I think it just feels silly to say because it's just what makes a really strong doula and a good support person. But it's just when I walk into a room and I see any of those things, or even if it's just the partner and the birthing person are like, they're just already on their own jiving and supporting one another, whatever. But the doula's right there, like that just feels like I know that they're good. And if I today have 2 patients and I'm running back and forth and it's spicy and it's busy on the floor and I can't just be one-to-one the way that I want to be, I just feel like I can sigh a little bit and I can be trusting in the like good care that my, patient that I'm caring for has through the doula that's working with them. And I know that like they have somebody who can suggest a position change or just help hold them while they're squatting and, all of that. I just feel like I can have a little relief when I'm getting pulled in more directions than I really ideally would be.
Yeah. And they have your cell phone number so they know to
maybe I come back.
Please come back
right now.
Need you.
Yes. Yeah. So those are some of the things I think I love the most or I've borrowed.
Well, on the flip side, what are some pet peeves that you have?
Yeah. I think we sort of touched on some of this before with just that idea of like ego. I think that really does apply to any roles. And there have been times where I've worked with some doulas who just have very, very big egos. And just like I've worked with providers with very big egos and probably, like nurses, and I've met partners with big egos, and it's just any role that you're in, it's like, there's just no space for that. And there's no space for like, we talked about the feel of the room, the energy of the room. There's no space for being adversarial. And like we can advocate without necessarily arguing, and that's not to say that like I won't like use a big girl voice, or I like the Bluey description of my big girl bark or whatever. Like I will have a bark. And if somebody is doing something and this patient is saying no and stop and they're not stopping, you better believe that I am going to like get spicy and fight for that person. But what gets challenging is like maybe we have a labor course that's tricky or long or hard, or we have somebody who's sick and we have to make decisions or make recommendations to keep them safe.
Right.
What can be really, really hard is when instead of like pivoting and still holding space for what we can still continue with, like, and prioritizing like, how do we let this person still take this information in and make their decisions? Like, it feels like instead of that, sometimes there are moments, and again, this is really with providers too, and
Yeah.
doulas. It's not really just one role versus another, but it's like when we have this attitude of like, I'm the right one,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to argue more so than understand and let this person make decisions, then it can get really challenging.
Yeah. And I bet
and that's hard.
sometimes that happens even regardless to what the patient is feeling.
Yes, and that's what it is. Is it's like if the patient is feeling like a certain way, and somebody is like advocating for that discussion, like that comes across so differently. Like when I've witnessed it, then it's like I can see like the patient might try to say something, and then maybe it's not getting clear, and then maybe like the doula might introduce like, hey, I think they're asking about, or can we discuss or talk more about this or this? Like it comes across more clearly like I need more pause, and we're on the same page, and like, hey, can someone, and then I'm like, oh, I can see what's happening. They know this person, they have background with this person outside of this room, and they're introducing something that I can see is important to this person too.
Right.
Hey, how can I help? But sometimes I've had people who are like, the patient is like, wow, I've gotten this information and I feel like I want to make this decision. And then sometimes it feels like it's like pushing and arguing in a different way.
Yeah.
And like I said, the same can be true the other way around. I've seen, like nurses who are more pushy about things going a certain way, or providers who are more pushy about things going a certain way that also aren't necessary. Or what this patient is saying that they want, story, and it's coming from their story
rather than from the client or the patient.
So it's really hard, I feel like, sometimes to just pinpoint. But I think the broad stroke being that, like, if we are not remembering that this person is in charge of themselves and has their own agency, and that we're not replacing their voice, then we are going to be the problem, no matter what.
And they're also able to change their mind.
Yes. And that's sometimes hard. I think like a common example that comes up is when somebody doesn't want an epidural, and maybe they have a doula they've worked with before. And so sometimes we show up to the hospital and like, no matter what you want for your labor, there's this pause, like this period where like labor's kicking into this, like we're inactive, and then we're heading towards transition, where many people will then be like, oh my God, I need help. And it's like that fight or flight. It's like this, I have all of these hormones rushing, and I feel like I'm in a scary place. And a lot of people, not everybody, but probably most people at that moment will panic a little bit. And they're like, I need this right now. And
they're in the I can't do this phase.
Correct. And sometimes it's hard to tease out, like especially if they're just arriving to the hospital that far, and it's not somebody I've met early enough where I've had that conversation where we're not really like far in labor. I'm like, hey, if we get to this point, what do you want me to do? How do I best support you?
Exactly.
But then sometimes it's tricky, because I'm like, maybe they've met with this doula before and they've said, don't give me one no matter what.
Exactly.
And this doula is like, hey, can we try this first? And then sometimes there are nurses who are like, want to fight that right away. And they're like, this person said they want this, boom.
Yep.
And you're coming with this other information, and maybe so is the partner. And they're like, they told me never, 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 unless they say pineapple upside down cake or something silly like that.
I would say that's my pet peeve.
Yes.
I have this thing that I do with my clients when I meet with them at their 37-week visit, where it's called the PRS, the pain relief scale. And what the scale is, the question of the scale is sort of, where is your threshold for wanting the epidural or not wanting it?
Yeah.
And where could you get it and feel really good about making that decision? And so I say 0 on the scale is, I want the epidural as soon as possible.
Yeah.
I would like it with the second contraction. That would be great. My safe place, my empowering stance in this is to be in the bed on an epidural as pain-free as possible for the entire time.
Which I want to add is so valid.
It's so valid.
So many times people talk about like how empowering it is to get through labor without one. And I just think sometimes it's important to remember that for some people, it also might be more important for them to have one and to not have the trauma of having a labor without pain management that they wanted very much.
Absolutely. And a lot of people that choose that, 0 or 1 on that scale are also survivors of assault and trauma. And so the doula's role in that case then shifts to getting them pain relief, access to pain relief as soon as possible.
Yeah.
So then 10 on the scale is the opposite. I don't want an epidural. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to be offered it. I don't want to be consented by anesthesia. And I usually say to folks, 10s are usually out of hospital birthers. They're usually people who have really made this decision and made the access to getting pain relief more challenging because they really want to give it their all and try it on their own, which means they're at home with a midwife or they're in a birthing center with a midwife. 5 on the scale is someone who knows that they want an epidural on their, in their plan, but they want to experience the labor a bit. They want to get to a place where they feel like, okay, that's enough now. Yeah. I would like a nap and I'm good. I felt enough. I would like my epidural. Yeah. They don't want to be talked out of it. They don't want to be shifted or distracted to doing 3 more positions or whatever. When they say it, they want it.
Yeah.
7 to 9s, I think, are the kind of niche spot for many doulas, work with people in that area who are really committed to trying to do it without. And I say to folks too, this means if you're in this pocket, your commitment means you've also done some work.
Yeah.
So that means you have hired a provider who specializes in the kind of birth experience you want to have. You are in a location that supports the kind of birth experience you want to have. They don't frown upon you eating and drinking in labor. They have wireless monitors that actually work. They have access to hydrotherapy. They have birthing balls and peanut balls and birthing stools and all of that good stuff. You've taken an out-of-hospital birth class and you've hired a doula. And maybe you've read a book or listened to a podcast or 2. So that 7 to 9 pocket is where I think that clash can happen.
Yeah.
When we've done all this work as doulas with our clients through the prenatal journey and even laboring at home for hours. Sometimes we're at their houses before we come in. Yeah. And then we're met with that nurse who is like, "You ready for your epidural?" And we're like, "Of course she is, but she truly doesn't want it. Please." She told me she's a 9 when she was sitting on her couch. And so I even go further with that PRS and I say, let me, if you are a 7, 8, 9, let me walk you through a scenario. Let's say we walk into this hospital and you're 6 to 7 centimeters dilated. Things are really getting hard. Now the contractions are right on top of each other, but it's getting hard because you're almost done. You're getting into that place where any decision that will get you done faster is the one that you want to take. And a lot of times the only control that really is in sight is getting pain relief. We don't really know how much longer it's going to take to get this baby out. But would you rather in that place, if you are in transition and you're starting to say that you want an epidural, would you rather try some positions with me that might seem really hard in the moment, and your partner might think, "My God, why did we hire this horrible, this terribly cruel woman?" But these positions will help you have a baby, and then we'll be done. Yeah. So a lot of times we've had these conversations already. Right. And so then when met with, the nurse who is, to her defense, just seeing this person in excruciating pain, saying they want an epidural.
And the nurse is like, "Okay, friend, I can help you with that."
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
It's hard. And it's really, I think that's a perfect example. It's really a challenge on the nursing side too, because if we get somebody who comes in and they're like 6 to 7 centimeters and this is what's going on, it is sometimes challenging because we don't have that background data and that person is not in the position to have that conversation about their actual true wishes or background data.
And that's when I would pull a nurse out and say, "Just so you know, this is what we've talked about. This is their wish list. This is their preferences. Can you think of anything else that might help her get to a different place? I'm thinking about these positions next, but can you think of anything to offer to?" Trying to incorporate the nurse into it.
Yeah, I think that's important for sure. And it definitely shows that like the collaborative approach is like, we're all here trying to center this person. And sometimes it's tricky because like if I haven't been able to meet somebody when they're early on enough to have basically the same conversation of what's the most important to you. And if you get to a place that you're asking for it, what's going to make you feel safe and heard? Is it me helping you push past?
Right.
Try one more thing. Let's do this too. Or is it going to be me hearing you say that and immediately responding to those wishes? Like what is truly your priority here? If I haven't been able to have that conversation, it's hard to tease it out sometimes. And it can be challenging if I am working with someone who is saying like only the information of she doesn't want one. And I'm like, well, I understand that. But also, like you said, people are allowed to change their mind. And if you are not giving additional data of like, we've had this conversation and discussed these things prior, then all I'm getting is the same information I originally had instead of a perspective that helps me to know the best way to show up for my patient.
Right. And then you're just getting a wall from the doula. No
and
extra information.
The same thing happens the other way around. If you're telling the nurse like, hey, we've had this conversation and she has said under no circumstances, even if I'm begging, please don't give me one, help me do something else first. If the nurse is like, yeah, but now she's saying she wants one, and so I'm going to get one for my patient. Right. That's actually not as helpful for the patient's long-term wishes if there's no collaboration and willingness to see other sides. And I also think there's an in-between because sometimes people come in that like 6, 7, 8 centimeters and they're losing their mind and they really don't want one, but they need to know that they could have one. Yes. Like it's like that sense of peace of
then we can stall a little
and so
bit.
Then sometimes I'm like, I'm holding this bag of fluids and I'm just slowly spiking it and we're priming it. And you know what? We got to help you cope while we're getting ready anyway. So let's get in the, why don't you get in the tub?
Why don't you try this position
you
in
do
the
this
tub?
first. And you know what? Even if we're starting fluids aren't going to hurt you. I'll give you a little bit of fluids and like, I'm going to go, I'll just, we'll call anesthesia when the fluids are done.
Yep.
And then by the time the fluids are done, the baby's out, and sometimes, and then they're like, oh my God, I did it.
Those births together.
We have. And it's beautiful though, because then like they do feel like if it's like they've said, never give me one and we have to help them cope with the discomfort right now anyway, we're going to do that anyway, even if they really do actually want one. Yep. And we're prepping them for getting one if they really do truly mean it.
Heard.
And they know that they're heard. And then sometimes we happen to have a baby in the middle of all of we're coping and we're prepping. And then they're like, oh my God, I did do it. And that joy is just so like palatable in the room.
That's the best.
So I think there's a place for both. And honestly, personally, like I didn't have epidurals with any of my kids. My middle child, where I was in the hospital, and I mentioned briefly, like ended up being a fast labor. I had that nurse from the beginning who kept offering me stuff when I first got there. And I was like, I really don't want you to say this again. I want to scream. Like, don't tell me it's a choice. I'm aware it's a choice. That's why I didn't want to be here.
Right.
And then also with my last baby, I had my labor really wasn't long in real terms, but she was the longest of my 3 labors. And I had this wretched little kidney stone like stuck in a ureter. I had horrible back pain and she was in like this weird position and I was losing it because I kept feeling like I was at the end, but I actually wasn't. And I was in the tub for like the second time, just crying about how I couldn't do anything. And my midwives were like, we were trying to help me cope and trying to help me push past. And I just remember one of them saying like, if we got you an epidural, like, would you regret it? And I was like, yes. And I
still want it.
Yes. And that was like, they're like, well, let's go do this position. Like you said, let's go do this position that's hard. And so I go to the bed, do this position. And my fantastic nurse did the fake spiking the bag of fluids. And I saw her and it was like, part of me knew it was fake. But I was like, okay, she's going to do that and I'm going to do this dumb position. And I was in the position for 2 contractions and then it was time to have my baby.
Had a baby. Yes.
But I was so glad at the end because it really was like, I did feel that like, it's the same thing I've done for patients before where I've helped them get to the end with a doula and we just like, we all know we're not getting this epidural that she also doesn't want it, but we're trying and boom, there we are. And then to be on the other side of it, I was so relieved for both of those things. Yeah. I was so glad to have somebody push me past it because that was actually what was most important. And I was glad to have the pretend show of we're going to take care of you even if you do want one. And look, see?
Yeah, but then also,
and it was like, but also she knew I wasn't getting it either. She wasn't going to call anybody for me,
No,
but then I was so glad, it was like I felt safe enough to try the weird position
Like,
and then
okay,
boom,
I'm just going
here
to
we
wait
are.
for my epidural.
Yes. And then boom, here's my baby, actually, because it was just time for her to be born.
Well, and
Great.
then too, in the same scenario, but we're doing these things to try to stall, and there's no baby, there's no baby,
Yes.
there's no baby, there's
Yeah.
no baby. Then it's like, okay, the team can come together and see the epidural is probably the right intercession.
Yes. And
to
actually,
use.
whether it's I need one because I want one, I need one because of trauma, or I need one because this labor is weird. Like, there's a time and a place for it, and it's actually a really important tool, and we shouldn't be so opposed to it, because there are times where, like, why isn't this baby coming?
Yes.
Maybe we're in a weird position, but maybe also we can't cope no matter what we try. And someone's pushing involuntarily at 6 to 7 centimeters, and we can't get them to stop. That
So
feels
tough.
miserable for them, but it also puts them at risk of their cervix tearing and having horrible
And swelling and making
swell
it even
but
harder.
It can swell, and that's hard. But if they push so hard that it's like friable and it tears, that's a bad tear. Like, then they can bleed a ton, and we don't.
No,
I mean, so like, there's a
thanks.
real clinical reason for it sometimes, because sometimes they need the rest and they need to be able to sleep. And sometimes it's the magic trick that lets someone sleep and lets us do weird, wonky position changes and keep a cervix from swelling and have a vaginal delivery. And so I think it's a tool that, like, goes to either extreme of we should never have one and we should always have one. And actually, it's just like, we should just be mindful of what they want and what we need.
Yeah, exactly. I just had a birth a couple of weeks ago, a repeat client who I love, an induction, and didn't want meds, didn't have meds for the first one, and wonderful midwife and nursing team, and got to this place at 6 with just so much pressure, couldn't stop pushing, couldn't stop pushing, couldn't stop pushing. And we were trying to get her comfortable, couldn't do it. We tried to even push against it, wasn't working. We were starting to get fluids for the epidural. She was upset. We were all upset. We wanted her to get this birth that she wanted. And then we did. I said, let's just, while you're getting your fluids, let's just do the side lie release, and I'm going to jiggle the fuck out of you and just jiggle, and got her on the second side, and she started pushing again, and then the baby's head was right there.
Yeah. And then, so like, let's just have a moment of pause then for that side lie release. Because, oh my God, that's what the position was that they put me in for Lucy. And it was 2 contractions, and then I was like grunting. And we turned over, and actually she's just right there. And I had like, I don't know, like a month ago, I had a nurse delivery like that, where we were like, 7 centimeters, 7 centimeters, 7 centimeters, 7 centimeters. And I was like, let's just try this. And we did 3 contractions on one side. We went to turn over, and I caught the baby. And I was like, oh, you just heard like me trying to hit my button and call for anybody to come in. Then here we are. Okay, we've had a whole baby. It's a magic position sometimes.
It is a magic position. Yes. Tori, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for spending some time talking about your doula ways, and thank you so much for bringing all of that into your work now. I can't wait to see you work as a midwife, and I hope to be by your side.
No, me too. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's really an honor to be here with you.
What a journey, and how full circle for you to be here today. It's so nice.
It's pretty special. Thank you. Have a good day.
And thanks so much for all of you for tuning in. You can find our podcast, the To Raise Questions Doula podcast, on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. You can even watch us on Spotify or YouTube. And please, please, please comment, like, follow, subscribe. Please send us emails. We want to hear your questions. We want to hear your episode ideas. We want to have you on. So you can email me at melanie@tolabor.com. We also have a workshop coming up December 5th through the 7th here in person in Richmond, or you can join virtually from anywhere. So look on the website, tolabor.com, for more information on that. And thanks for listening. This episode was recorded at Vera House, produced by Perry Young and Mike Metzger. And special thanks to my husband, Jared Russell, for his lighting tweaks and input all along the way.